Sarah, thanks so much for joining me today.
I am thrilled to be here.
Now, before we dive in, do you mind giving a brief intro for the audience so they can know what you specialize in?
Sure. After a long journey of having my own products, handbags, and a closet organizer for handbags that I patented back in 2003, I ended up finding myself in a consulting position. People wanted to know how I was successful with my brands. And so I started consulting in 2009, and that's what I do today. I help mostly fashion, accessory, baby lifestyle brands find their way on the internet, build authority there, sell to stores, pitch themselves and get into magazines and other media streams, and work with celebrities.
That's absolutely amazing. Do you remember the first sale that you had when you started out?
So yes, when I started my handbag line, one of the very first sales was to a young woman who actually ended up coming to work for me. So I had sort of twofold. I'll tell you one quick story about the other fabulous sale. Was when I just started kind of dabbling in the bags and still had my job, my full-time job working in the film business. It wasn't until I got a PO from Anthropology was when I sort of was like, wow, I'm going to quit my job. This is a real business. And I got my first order to Anthropology maybe 9 months later. And I was in New York and looking for sales reps. And I was in a restaurant and waiting to go to the bathroom. And this woman comes out with one of my bags on her shoulder. And it was the first time I'd ever seen my bag outside of Los Angeles, on somebody. And so I just quickly said, oh, what a cute bag. Where'd you get it? And she said, oh, at Anthropology in Soho, but they don't have that many. So you should rush to get one. And I was like, okay. And then I just giggled to myself. But that was one of my first experiences of ever seeing somebody in a big city with one of my bags.
Now, how was your background before that? I mean, a lot of people have these ideas or passions or things they want to pursue. Did you have a big background in manufacturing, retail sales?
Not really. I worked in film. So I did costumes for movies, but I wasn't selling anything and didn't know anything about selling. I was never going to be an entrepreneur. I'm actually a fourth generation, and both my grandmothers were in the fashion business in New York. One died before I was born, who I was named after. The other, I did know her. She had a children's clothing store and fine linen store in New York. And so I watched her in business, but I was like, that is not for me. I'm just going to live and die in the film business. I just want to have a job, get a paycheck, to have someone tell me what to do and where to be. And then I don't know, I just got this idea for a handbag and from this little craft club that I was in, and I just kind of shoved it in a drawer for about a year. And so I didn't know what to do with it. And then a boyfriend at the time was an entrepreneur, and I'd never really known an entrepreneur other than my parents and my grandparents. All my friends were in the film business because I worked there 90 hours a week. So that's where I met people. And he dared me to get this idea going because I sort of let it slip out that I had this idea. So I just did it at night and on the weekends and kind of pieced things together and asked people advice. And I had met a couple people in the fashion industry just through the film business, like needing to get things made. And so I knew my way around the fashion industry in LA a little bit in Los Angeles. But I only knew one or two people, but I just called them up and I was like, hey, I've got this bag idea. What do I do? And they sort of pointed me to a few people who might be able to help me because being in clothing, they didn't know anything about making bags. And so I just kind of muddled my way through it and ended up making these bags at home. They were very simple and showed them to some people, and people really liked them, like just friends of mine, and they started buying them. And that's kind of how I got started. I knew nothing about pricing, nothing about calling stores or selling or what to do. I mean, I didn't even have a website until, I don't know, 1999 or 2000 or something. So it was very organic in how I grew it from the beginning.
That is probably one of my favorite things about people when they share their story is the fact that they just get started. And I think so many people kind of wait for that perfect moment or trying to have all the information, all the question answered. But one of the most consistent themes I have on the show from people like you is they took the leap. And I'll be honest, I'm glad you got dared into it. Most people don't have someone in their corner to do that. But
Yeah.
what's really interesting about your journey is now you're helping people that are in the similar place that you were. In your entrepreneurial journey, do you remember the progression when you finally were able to say, you know what, I've gotten to this point. Now I'm going to go look back and realize who I can help?
So it sort of kind of all my businesses, I've had like 6 businesses in my life, but all my businesses seem to just organically happen. And it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. And they're like, yeah, it should be a business. Oh, okay. And my handbags weren't like that. It was just, I made them and people liked them. But other businesses I've had have been sort of that, whoo, I should have had a V8 kind of thing. And with my consulting, when my handbag business closed, I lost it after 9/11 and my investors pulled out. And I ended up having to close the company at the end of 2002. During that year of 2002, when it was kind of evident to people that I was shutting down, all these huge companies started headhunting me. And, but I didn't draw. My sister did drawing for me, or I just kind of came up with an idea and I made these, I used to make the bags out of construction paper because I didn't know how to draw and I needed to see like the 3D effect of it. So I'd cut them out and staple it or tape it together or whatever. And I'd go to my manufacturer and I'd be like, hey, here's this bag. And the first time I showed up with that, I thought he was going to die. He's like, what am I supposed to do with that? I'm like, here it is, here's the bag. and so none of these companies wanted to hire me because I didn't draw. So then somehow, I guess some smaller companies in Los Angeles got wind that I was going out of business and called me and said, hey, can you come show me how you did what you did, how you got products to celebrities, how you got in so many magazines, how did you make so much money? What's the trick? So I started going and working in these companies for a few months at a time. I guess, at the time I didn't think of it as like a consulting gig, but that's what it was. And it was really fun. I loved learning about their brand, learning about also the kind of the surprise for me was that they weren't as big as I thought they were. So here I'm thinking that they were like $5 or $7 million a year brands, but really they were barely doing $1 million or $1.2 million. And it was all in the appearances, right? I met them, I knew these women from the trade shows in New York. We all did the same shows. We all lived in Los Angeles, but didn't know each other there. It would just be like, hey, at the show. And then I'd never see them again for 3 more months. And, they used to watch me, I guess, on the sideline. I was lucky. I got a lot of media attention. I got a lot of products to celebrities. I had bags in movies. So it got me, on Access Hollywood and Entertainment and those kinds of shows besides magazines. So I had a lot of, kind of paparazzi behind me in a sense, and it really propelled my brand. And so they wanted to know how to do it. And I loved the idea of looking at someone else's business and solving the problems, because I knew how to solve the problem. I just didn't have my own problems to solve anymore. So I just sort of shifted the focus to that. And I've just loved it. And I love that about what I do today. I'm a really good problem solver and I think really differently. And some of the companies I work with have been in business. Even I have a client who's been in business 20 years. And every time we talk, she's like, you teach me so much. And yet she's super successful. And I just think differently and we complement each other in that way. So those kinds of things I just find so fun.
I like the fact that each step taught you a new skill that became valuable. And I try to impress upon people the importance of there's no big failure. Like you lost a business that had been the thing, but in losing that business, you almost created something even bigger and something more impactful. What did you do to embrace a mindset of either abundance, or how do you keep going forward? Because most people, they'd want to just, oh, I failed, I'm out, and just go back to like a normal job. How did you embrace the mindset you have to continue going forward?
Well, it was after a lot of crying and cocktails, and I don't know how to do anything but make handbags and babysit, right? Or I can go back to the film business, which I didn't want to do. And I think some of it had to do with my dad. He's gone now, but he was a really big fan of mine and a fan of my thinking and my brain. And I think a lot of times, like, I think what happens, or what happened to me, I don't want to project, but I think in a lot of entrepreneurs bring people into their company because they think this person's way smarter than they are. And they don't realize that they actually need to learn those skills, and that just bringing someone in doesn't make you smarter. It might make a part of your business smarter, but you don't even know how to run that part of your business. So I think I learned the hard way that, like with all these investors that I had, thinking that they were going to teach me or somehow make me smarter or put it under my pillow and I'd absorb it through osmosis or whatever, right? But what I really learned is that when you, for me, the mindset shift was trusting myself and knowing that if I learned how to do something, that it was going to be way more powerful and financially beneficial to me. Like for instance, when I had my handbag line, I didn't know how to use Photoshop because it was pretty new and it was super expensive, or seemed ridiculously expensive for software at the time. So I would hire someone to do my line sheets and create all these digital products for me because it was all new. Nobody had digital products, right? We couldn't email them. We still had to print it and mail it to people. but I realized, like, after I lost my handbag company, when I launched my next company with the closet organizer, I learned how to build a website. Taught myself how to use Photoshop. I asked people constantly, could you help me? Could you show me how to do this? There was no Google yet, and Yahoo was kind of lame at the time. So you couldn't really sit down and find a tutorial online. There was no YouTube yet. And so it was really kind of a hunt and peck mentality. And I think that, when you empower yourself and learn what it is that you need to know, so that you can then say, oh, I don't really like doing that, I'm going to go hire someone to do this, but now at least I know what their job is and I know what to expect from them. It just elevates you to that different, almost like a CEO level in your head, right? Because everyone's like, oh, I'm the CEO of my company, right? And sometimes I still think that. I'm like, I'm not a CEO. That's ridiculous. I'm just me. And I'm just a girl like everyone else, right? And I'm a mom. But when you think about your breadth of knowledge, right, the things that you learn and the stepping stones that you have to go through in order to become a CEO, like when you think about, Steve Jobs didn't just wake up and go, ooh, I just know everything, right? He had to learn it all and, figure it all out, and how to hire people, and just like we all do, right? And you build your company with each brick that you learn. And I think that doing those things gives you that inner strength to move on to the next thing, because then you feel powerful. Oh, I did that. Let me try the next task, right? And then as you build and do these things for yourself, because a lot of the companies don't have outsourcing money, right? So you're building your site, learning Photoshop or whatever, learning your email marketing, learning how to do Facebook ads and want to shoot yourself. And, and all those things that you have to do today. I think taking a step towards those things and embracing them is what I think ultimately helps you get to your goal, or it did for me.
That to me is the ethos of what entrepreneurship is. Like I see so many people, they want the term entrepreneurship because they relate it to fancy cars, like private jets. But to me, it's more about the journey and the skill acquisition and the value you can give back to make an impact. But what's really been impressive with some of the stuff you've done is how you've been able to pivot it into other companies. So from manufacturing to consulting, what has been some of the biggest challenges with transformations without like carrying a loss with you, like a struggle or a challenge when you come into the new business?
When I came into my consulting company,
Yeah.
I took baby steps. I mean, like I said, I think I got sort of a taste of it with these couple of companies that I worked with that first year after I closed my company. So in 2003, and that just seeing the change that I could make in companies that weren't, I had no real financial stake in it. I was getting paid to be there. But at the same time, I felt 100% responsible. Like, I'm telling them to do this, like, it better work, we better see some results or I'm a complete and utter loser. Right. So, so it helped me start to think in a different way, like, if it's not mine, right, how do I still sort of take ownership, right? Because all these people, like, I feel like they're part of my family, even in my group coaching where I have lots of people and I don't work with them one-on-one, I still know everything about their business. I didn't let them in till I knew I could help them, because for me, I don't want to it's not about just making money. It's about actually making the impact. And if I can't impact somebody's life, obviously I can't make them do the work, right? People are like, what's the guarantee? I'm like, well, I don't even know you. So you can't tell. I mean, if you want me to be your boss, you're going to hate me, because I am probably like the hardest boss you'll ever have. Right. And I'll be like, you didn't do that. It's been 4 days. Like, it should have been done in 20 minutes. So I think that it's been that each task with people opens up a new door for me. And I think one of the things that I learned before I started my next business, which I didn't launch the closet organizer, I patented it in 2003, but I didn't launch it till 2006. And I kind of dabbled in other people's businesses for a few years and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was scared to start another accessory business on my own. And I definitely didn't want any partners. I wanted to just do this by myself. But I didn't want to do it wrong, right? I kept thinking, well, I did all these other things incorrectly. How do I do it right this time? Because I really want to hit it big and make a lot of money right away. Because with my first company, I didn't know how to price anything. And probably the first 2 years I lost money. I don't know. I definitely wasn't making money. I had 2 other companies that were supporting me. So it didn't matter as much, but I just didn't know what I didn't know right in the beginning. But I think when you take these little tiny steps towards your goal, I took a women's entrepreneurial group class, and I remember calling my dad and I was like, it's $300. It's going to be the best or worst $300 I've ever spent. Right. And he's like, just go for it. What do you have to lose? Right. So I took this course, and the women in there encouraged me to launch with my handbag organizer. Cause I was like, I have this patented product, but I'm terrified to do anything with it, and they're like, you're sitting on a gold mine. But what it was that someone said to me was, one of the things you have to remember is that the people who are closest to you in the world, like your friends and family, are often going to be the biggest naysayers when you want to launch, because they're just protecting you. Like, they want to save you from yourself. And, don't spend the money. You're going to lose it. Look what happened to your last business. It's too dangerous, whatever. Right. The best advice I ever got was to say, hey, thanks for your thoughts, or something like that, and just take it in. And then later on, just accept it so you can stop the naysayers, right? Just, hey, thanks. And then look at what they said to you, because sometimes there's little nuggets in there that are actually true, like maybe something you hadn't thought of, like that could save you a ton of money, or maybe someone gave you a better idea and you're like, oh God, if I just tweak it like this, it's going to be 100 times better, right? But your brain is going, no, right? And so I think listening to people who may not know more than you, but could have a great idea, or, you may just chuck their idea. But being open to criticism or concerns, or, anything that people throw at you as an entrepreneur, I think it's important to be able to somehow listen and take it in and do with, either accept it or throw it away, but that those little pieces help you grow all the time. And then I decided to get serious about this. So I ended up hiring a business coach, because I didn't know how you sell what's in your head. I was like, I can sell a product in my sleep, but I don't know how to tell anyone what I can do to help them. And so that was really the pivot point for me. And she challenged us. I think I started with her in October, November of 2008, and or no, 2009. And she just said, you have to make a goal and sell whatever, however many dollars worth of coaching services by December 31st. So it was like a 90-day program. And I had said I wanted to make $50,000. I just picked a number. And I think I sold 45,000. And, I did what she told me to do. My first consulting client came from Twitter, of all places. I don't think I've ever had another one from Twitter ever again. Yeah. But it's just amazing when someone challenges you and says, this is how you're going to do it, and now implement it and go do it, right? Again, it was kind of like the dare to start my handbag company, right? She sort of dared me to make the $50,000. And I just didn't even think it was possible. I mean, I had to work through all of those challenges of, why would someone want to hire me? I'm a total loser. I lost my handbag company, but then I did really well with my other company, so you have this roller coaster ride where I think as an entrepreneur, you draw upon all the positives and the negatives, right? It's like making the lists of which one outweighs the other, and how do you improve, or how do you use or reuse or twist it or, redo it a different way, or maybe there's a new technology, or, God, and how these days you have to keep up with technology every 50 seconds. So, it's kind of more, I think it's way more of a roller coaster ride now, than it was sort of pre-internet.
Oh, 100%. And with that, though, becomes an opportunity to learn. And you said a few things. I'm going to try to unpack them because there was so much wisdom in what you just went through. One, like I think a lot of people, they get not necessarily bad advice, but they get advice from people who haven't been where they want to go. So they don't have the value of the experience that comes from going on the journey of the path they're going to. I think you've been fortunate by people who dare you. I can't wait. I think someone's got to dare you to become a billionaire with your track record.
I'm waiting.
Yeah. So done. There
Bring
it is.
Bring it on, people. Bring it on.
Yeah, there it is. But one of the things I've noticed in the consistency of a number of the stories and lessons you've shared has just been your openness to learning, and the way in which you've embraced what other people would consider failure, you saw as I learned more. And although it was only $300, your first instinct and reply was it's either going to be the best or the worst, but regardless, I've learned, I've moved forward. How much, and I'll be honest and fully transparent, like I think our education system's broken, because I will probably go out on a limb and say almost all of the successful entrepreneurs I've interviewed for this show have either abandoned traditional degrees and picked up something that was more passionate than using traditional schooling. What has been your experience of leveraging life experience to propel your success?
Oh my God, 100%. I mean, I was a costume design major in college. Right? I mean, I went in as a French major. I wanted to be a simultaneous translator at the UN, came out a costume design major. And, here I am, an entrepreneur and consultant. And my dad used to always tell me, because he was a psychiatrist, and he used to say, you'd be the best therapist. And I was like, I don't want to listen to people's problems all day long, right? And then now I think, because I started this after he passed, and I was like, wow, he'd be so proud of me, right? Because I've taken what he thought I'd be good at, but turned it into something kind of, right? I mean, I talk to people all day long, but I teach them something different. And I think that, like my podcast is called Get a Street Smart MBA, because that's what I have, right? And I feel like pretty much everyone I've talked to and most of the people that I work with do have a Street Smart MBA, right? They didn't go to business school. And even you find like a lot of business books, if you really look at who wrote them, if it's not somebody famous, they're written by professors and who've never had their own business. They just know about it, right? So you're not getting what you were like how you were saying, I have that firsthand experience. So I can say, oh yeah, I've worked with investors. I've been turned down by, millions of stores who didn't want to buy my stuff and the thousands who did, right? I've gone on to trunk shows. I've done truck shows all over. I've done trade shows. I can tell you, what you need to say on the first day, right? When they ask you, what's your best sellers? And you're like, you just opened 5 minutes ago. How do I know? Because that's the first thing I thought when someone asked me that, and I didn't know the answer. So I'm sure I look like a total idiot. But I don't want anyone to have those experiences. So I find the pleasure in sharing my own, drawing on my own experiences and my own, in the gutter half the time, right? Learning from the, crawling and learning your own things, right? It's like, Instagram comes out, you have to learn that. And then, it's like, oh, wait, there's all these influencers now. It's not just celebrities. It's, what are magazines looking for? Oh, they have online components now, so for me, I find that every month almost there's a different twist, right? Then TikTok comes out. I mean, it's like, could they stop already? So it's this constant learning and re-education of yourself, like you were saying. But I think that if you do make mistakes, and people are going to, I mean, it's not like everyone always, sometimes people are like, I didn't listen to you and I did this anyway, and you were right, I totally backfired. And I was like, well, sometimes you have to try it for yourself. You don't believe the person, right? I mean, or you think your idea is better, and and sometimes that's just the way people work. They have to do it their own way, and I totally respect that. I mean, it's a choice, right? You either do it your own way and learn maybe the hard way, or maybe it's super successful and you've got a home run. But I do think that, like you, I think traditional education is kind of going by the wayside. And I mean, I even see it in my kids. They're learning sort of entrepreneurial skills now just from being around me. And I say that they know and recognize already that these skills will be valuable, when they grow up. And I don't think either one wants to be an entrepreneur, but that's fine. We don't need 5 generations.
It's funny. You say you had the privilege of meeting my son, who he now thinks like interviewing is a job, which is
Right.
really funny, which it is. I know there's media, but he thinks like, well, I can just grow up and just interview people all day. I'm like,
Right.
there's more to it. But yes, 100%. I think like experience is the greatest teacher
Yes.
of all. Before we get to the last question, where can people find you and follow your journey?
Oh, you can find me on my website at sarahshawconsulting.com, and on all social channels at Sarah Shaw Consulting.
Awesome.
Mostly just on Instagram and Facebook, but
I will make sure to put all of those in the show notes for everybody. The final question we have today: what is the one lesson you can share with the listeners to inspire them to find happiness in their pursuit?
Oh my God, so easy. Follow your gut. Because if you don't follow your gut, you will definitely get tripped up. I mean, again, this sort of goes back to listening to other people rather than to yourself. You want to make sure that whatever someone suggests actually feels good in your body, because instantly, I'm sure we've all experienced this. Someone tells you to do something and you're like, oh God, oh, right. And other times that you're like, oh my God, that's such a great idea, and, when you come up with something that doesn't feel right to you, totally relook at it. Or if it's an idea someone else gives you, because if you don't fully believe in it, there is no way it's ever going to be successful. And the other thing too, is make sure that you are so passionate and love what you're doing that you just can't wait to get out of bed in the morning to do it. Because when there's that, oh, this is such a drag, or you just have to go back to that gut feeling because it's just the wrong angle.
So that is awesome advice. And one I think I know when I haven't done it, it's been a pretty painful experience. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.